Now, today we're going to move to that second step of that LinkedIn success formula where we're talking about posting, right? So how and what to post on your feed, how to quickly create unique content, and then how to use posts to really build a relationship and drive engagement. That's the big key to this whole thing. So we're not just posting for the sake of posting where you're going to grab an article, or you're just grabbing a motivational quote, where those things can fit into the process as long as they're, you're doing it on purpose. You're fitting those into the customer value journey. You know why you're doing it. That's the big thing behind it. So we're going to cover how to do those things. And so before we get into it, I'm going to recap really fast. The typical process that somebody goes down when they start getting excited about social media, they know they need to be posting on it. What you'll do is typically you'll start creating and posting unique content on social media. Maybe you're pulling out your camera, taking videos. You're you're finding good articles. You're finding good quotes. You're finding really unique topics that can really strike up a conversation and get people to engage. But then you realize that it takes a lot of valuable time. If you don't have a system in place, or you're new to this whole thing, it's really easy to end up spending a lot of time, get burned out just on creating content. So what ends up happening is you post a quote, or you share an article, or you start going to those default, easy things to post that they get you out there, they get your name in front of people, but it's just not as effective or as efficient as it could be. So the result is that you get things like this. And we've covered this on a previous training where, you're sharing an article that takes somebody off of your LinkedIn feed over to, an article where if they want to get a hold of you, they have to backtrack, remember who posted it, try to find out how to connect with you. It's just not as effective, right? So I wanted to stress really fast that before, don't get discouraged if that's what you've been doing, or if that's what you end up doing for the next little bit. At least you're getting out there, right? Don't get analysis paralysis to the point that you're just not posting, you're not active. Being active is better than not being active. So there's a saying that I like, it's done is better than perfect, right? So if you're getting out there, pat yourself on the back. You're doing more than the average person does. So all I want to cover is that a few tips can make the difference between a regular post that somebody scrolls past and a post that somebody actually looks at and engages with. And it's all about creating a system for yourself. So what I want to cover on this training is we're going to talk about what's called the pre-post checklist. It's a 7-point pre-post checklist that I use every time I post and every time that I post for my clients. So it's a 2-part checklist. The first part is all about creating the content, right? So the actual, the text that you put into it, and what to put in the images and videos, what to talk about. That's part 1. And then part 2 is analyzing the actual post. So when you look at it, and we'll dive into it in a second, when you look at it, to make sure it's visually appealing, to make sure it grabs attention, to make sure that you've got all the ingredients in there that equal a good post. The next part we're going to talk about is creating your schedule and then putting it all together. So part 1 of the checklist, like I said, is creating the content. So before you put something together, I want you to ask yourself, what do I want my prospect to think, feel, know, or do when they see my post? Think, feel, know, do. Remember, if we go back a little bit, we talked about all buying decisions are based off of emotion. So what we really want to do is we want to start playing to emotions, right? How do we get people or what do we want people to think when they see this post? Do we want to is it thought-provoking in the sense of, what would happen if this happens? Or did you know that this is present in your business? Did you know that if you have just a 401k in your retirement plan that you're subject to taxation, or you can create a personal pension for yourself by utilizing annuities? There's a lot of things that we can get people to think and feel. And then also coupled with that is we can get them to know things. We can help them know things, right? And then the last section is, what do we want them to do? If you ask yourself before each time you post, what do I want my prospect to think, feel, know, and do? That already is going to automatically help get your content to the point where it's engaging, to where people want to interact with it, where they remember who you are instead of just scrolling past it. So now part 2 of the checklist, and I'm going to show you an example of this in a minute. Part 2 of the checklist is about analyzing the post structure. So with this, you need to ask yourself, does my post make the prospect pause, think, and engage? Okay. So really fast, especially on that pause section. Why is that important? Well, think about when people are using their phones, right? I was at the airport a couple of weeks ago, and I'm in the bathroom, and I look over, and this guy, he's doing his business. Sorry to get a little graphic on everybody, but he's doing his business, and then he's scrolling with one hand, right? So that's the kind of personality, that's the kind of mentality that you're dealing with sometimes. Is people are doing other things. They're watching TV, they're interacting with their friends and family, they're doing other things, they're busy. We live in a society where there's constantly things going on. So it's imperative that we get attention, that we get people to pause. Remember when we talked about that the currency of social media is attention. We have to get people to pause. We have to get them to do that. Now, the next step is, do we get them to think? So going back even to the first part of the checklist, now what do you want them to think, feel, know, do? Now we need to get them in our post structure to get them to think. So a lot of that has to do with the post, right? People like to consume snackable content. So instead of having a big giant paragraph that people look at it, and it's people will look at it and it's going to be overwhelming to them, to where they're going to feel naturally like they don't have time to engage with it. But if you're spacing out your sentences and paragraphs, then people will naturally be able to, they'll be more inclined to read that, to get them to think, to get them to get those juices flowing, to where they're considering what you're having to say, or considering what you're wanting them to feel. The last step is engage. So with every post, we want to have some sort of call to action. Remember, we don't want to leave our prospects guessing on what the next step in the process is. If we leave it up to people to figure out what the next step is, the majority of people won't take that step. The majority of people won't figure it out. They're not going to take the time to connect the dots, because most of the time, I hate to break it to you, but what we have to offer isn't as important to them as it is to us, right? So that's why we have to help, nurture them, to help give them the next step and get them to engage, so that they do take those next steps. Now, this is a post that we put out for one of our clients not too long ago. Now, at this time, our client had not posted in quite a while. It was, it was just not something that she was used to doing. It wasn't, she didn't know how to do it. She wasn't active on social media in general. So what we did is we used that 7-step formula, that seven-step that's a mouthful, 7-step pre-post checklist, to construct this article, or this post, that actually got people to like the post, to engage with the post, to comment on the post. And from there, we actually got them to take the next step. So you'll see right here, I'm gonna scroll through this a little bit. See where we have that link that's inside of there? We had a lead magnet, or a link to a lead magnet inside of this post to allow them to engage. So step one was creating the content. Now, we sat back and we're like, okay, what can we, what's a concept or a topic that is relevant to our audience? What do we want to educate them on, or help them understand? What do we want them to think about, feel, know, or do? So we came up with captive insurance, micro captives. Now with that, we've talked about it in previous trainings, but that's where you can get a $2.3 million tax deduction for basically setting up your own insurance company and covering risks in your business that normal insurance doesn't cover, right? That's an excellent tool to use that helps create money to fund other products like life insurance and annuities and stuff. So that was what we knew we wanted to put out there. That's the concept that we wanted. So in creating the content, the first thing is, what do I want my prospect to think, right? Look at the first section up here. We wanted to have them think, is my business missing out on a tax deduction? So what we have in here is, as a business owner, you have risks in your business: lawsuits, data breach, HIPAA violations, warranties, supply chain risk, key employees leaving. So what if you could protect yourself against those risks and get up to a $2.3 million tax deduction for doing so? So that's what we're putting inside of that first sentence there is, are we missing out on a tax deduction? $2.3 million for a company can be a lot of money. Some people, depending on where your business is at, that can be a pretty lofty number. So people will automatically exclude themselves. But if you're in that category where you could use a $2.3 million tax deduction on top of everything else you're doing, that's a great hook to get somebody to start thinking, right? The next is, what do we want them to feel? So the next part is, oh man, I've got risks in my business that I could be taking a deduction for. If we're in that first paragraph, we're identifying specific risks that people may have, that there's some pain associated with that, right? So that's getting that feeling out there. Now, what do we want them to know, right? So we want them to know that they can be deducting up to $2.3 million per year. And we put that in that first paragraph. Now, what do we want them to do? We want them to click on the link to learn more. We want them to click on the link to get access to our lead magnet, whatever it is. So now the next step of the pre-post checklist, does my post make them pause, think, and engage, right? So the first is the pause. People naturally like images and videos better. Images are great. Videos are even better because they're moving around. They naturally catch our attention more, right? That's not rocket science. I guarantee that when you're scrolling on social media, if somebody has a video, you are much more likely to be looking at that or take a split second to look at it more than if it's just text, right? There's a reason why, platforms like Instagram are getting so much more popular, and even TikTok, whether you're on it or not, it's very, very new, but it's popular because people like videos, right? So we have a video in here to get them to pause. Now, you may be thinking, all right, what is this guy? He's skiing. He's obviously going off of a jump. What does that have to do with a micro captive? Not a whole lot, right? So the next part of the text in here that says, get ready for your business to launch, right? So we kind of tie it in there. But when we put out posts like this and videos and stuff, we're not necessarily putting out things that are relevant. We're putting out things that get people to pause. There's a video that we have on, I think it's retirement planning or taxes. I can't remember which one, but what it is, it's a dancing chicken, or somebody in a chicken costume dancing in the background. And then there's text on the side. That's one of our most popular posts that we put out because it gets people to pause. All of a sudden you're scrolling through LinkedIn and you see somebody in a chicken suit dancing around. It's different. It stands out. It gets attention, right? So in this post, we got them to pause. Now, do we have an engaging hook to make them think, right? And I would say we do. We accomplish that because of the risks that we were identifying in here and the $2.3 million tax deduction. Great hook right there. Now, the last part is, does it get them to engage? We've got the link inside of here, but because of how we've separated the post, once somebody starts reading, see how that link is a different color than the rest of the text? People will automatically be drawn to that link with their eyes because it's different. And so that's how we get that link in there to get them to engage. So like I said, we got great engagement on this post, 23 likes, a comment, 753 views at the time that I took this screenshot. It was, I can almost guarantee there were more. But for the amount of connections that our client had at the time, this was a very large share of her first level connections, which was great. So what I want to say about the post or the when you're posting, right? Remember when we talked about a Disney store at the mall versus a Disney store at Disneyland, where a mall is, you stop in there as you're passing by, right? And you're at the mercy of, all the other stores, the rules of the mall, versus Disneyland, where Disneyland, captures your attention. They get you excited, they play to your emotions. We want to have more of a Disneyland post, Disney store at Disneyland post versus a Disney store at the mall post, right? So a Disney mall post is, hey, you need life insurance, call me at 360, whatever it is, right? Versus Disneyland is, hey, let me engage, let me capture your attention. And then once I've gotten you engaged and once you're emotionally invested somewhat in what I'm saying, then, click to schedule a call, click here to learn more, click here to download this. Or, the very last thing is, hey, call me at the whatever number you have there, which not a lot of people are going to call you, but if that's the only call to action you can put in there, put it in there so people don't have to guess what the next step is, okay? So a bonus that I want to give you is when you're putting out posts and you do include links, track your link clicks, okay? So that is going to give you it'll help you see what the actual engagement is on your post. So a lot of times when people look at social media, you've got like Facebook and Instagram where you're posting, you're posting about you, about your family, about your friends, and the people that are seeing it are your family, are your friends, then people are more likely to hit the like button because they know you, because it's something that, that's a warm feeling. It's something that's, yeah, they may like the post just because they like you, right? Versus LinkedIn, people are much slower to hit that like button. You won't get nearly as many likes on LinkedIn as you will on those other social media platforms because it's a business platform. But that does not mean that it's not effective. What happens is if people don't get likes on their posts, it's easy to get discouraged and be like, nobody likes my content. You may feel a little bit embarrassed because you're putting yourself out there a little bit. But if you're tracking your link clicks, that's one way that you can see if people are actually engaging with your posts. We've had many posts where, we've only had 1, 2, maybe 0 likes on a post, but we've had 10, 20, 30 clicks on the link in our post. That's great. That means people are engaging with it. They may not hit the like button, but they're engaging with it, that's what we're after, right? So a good platform to use is bit.ly.com. They've got free options on there. Go there, explore it, check it out. That's what I use for a lot of our stuff is just go to bit.ly, right? So write that down in your notes. So putting it all together, creating the content. What do I want my prospect to think, feel, know, do? And then when you're analyzing the post, does my post format make the prospect pause, think, and engage? Okay. So when should you be posting? How often should you be posting? Well, here's one of the best opportunities when it comes to LinkedIn. So check this out. There are over 675 million users on LinkedIn. A ton of users, right? There are over 9 billion weekly impressions that take place. That's video views, post views, likes, comments, shares, all that kind of stuff, right? Those are the impressions. Now, here's the opportunity. This should make your mouth start watering and just get you excited to start posting. Less than 1% of users on LinkedIn post weekly. Less than 1%. That means that less than 1% of the users are getting a share of those 9 billion weekly impressions. So just by posting weekly, at least once a week, you get a share of those 9 billion views. That puts you into the top 1% of all LinkedIn users. That's why LinkedIn is so powerful, is because there's so much opportunity to get that organic traffic or get that organic attention to where people are looking at your products and services and seeing your name so that they know who to go to and who, it'll get you seen as the expert, right? So putting it all together, create the content, analyze the post, and all you have to do is start your post, run through the pre-post checklist, and then post it, right? So what I want to do is I want to flip over and show you how to create unique and engaging content quickly, right? So this is one of those things that it's not difficult. It's not rocket science. It's merely just knowing where to go to get this stuff done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over and we're going to go back to Canva. Remember, we went to Canva for the first time. I think it was when we were talking about the our cover image, right? So when you get into Canva, when you're logged in, what you're going to do is you're going to go to create a design and go to custom dimensions. Now, again, social media platforms change their dimensions, their ratios, their aspects all the time, right? It's not uncommon for them to change. So if you're ever in doubt of what the dimensions are for a post or anything like that, an image, maybe your cover image doesn't look right, your post don't look right, go onto Google, click and see, just type in LinkedIn post image size 2020 or whatever the year it is at the time, right? So right now, if you do 1200 pixels by 1200 pixels, that is something that'll look good on a desktop. It'll look good on mobile, right? So LinkedIn will adjust your image size for you. So we're going to hit create design and we're in, right? So let me minimize my face a little bit. So in here, now that we've got our foundation set, we've got our canvas, right? So canvas, get it? So what we're going to do, now you may be thinking, okay, now what sort of content should I be posting? Now, for those of you that purchased the Challenge Accelerator package at the very beginning, I'm going to show you an example of how to use Orchestrate Your Legacy. So one of the easiest ways that I have found to stay consistent with my posting and stay consistent with new ideas on what to post is to constantly be studying and constantly be learning more about my field, my market, my occupation at the time. So whenever I've had trouble coming up with what to post, I realized that I've kind of become stagnant in my learning, right? Or me trying to remember what I had learned before. So I use books all the time to come up with new content. Marketing books, life insurance books, annuity books, financial planning books. Those are the things that I study to pull content from to figure out what I want to post. So flipping over to Orchestrate Your Legacy so I can show you how this works. Inside of Orchestrate Your Legacy, there's a number of different things that you can go to, right? So you've got case studies, you've got short stories, you've got one of the best parts about this book, honestly, is the appendix. So again, for those of you who don't remember seeing this, so Orchestrate Your Legacy has been used by both advisors or financial professionals and as clients as marketing material. So advisors have used it to learn, and they've also taken this and given to their clients to show these concepts in action. So when the authors of this book put this together, what they did was they took real cases that they had worked on and they put them all into this book. But so chapters 1 through 6 are all case studies, right? But one of the best parts about this book is at the very bottom is in the appendix. Now, the appendix goes through lots of definitions of financial concepts, from estate planning to life insurance to captives to, trust and wills, all that kind of stuff. So what I like to do, if I'm trying to figure out, now less for my personal post, but more for my clients, if I'm trying to figure out, okay, what should I post? I'll come to the appendix here. I'll go to one of the case studies and I'll just start reading to figure out, okay, what's something that I can pull out of this? Literally copy and paste if I need to post something, right? So we just landed on charitable planning, right? So inside of charitable planning, this paragraph reads, many believe that you must be philanthropic to benefit from a philanthropic legacy plan. However, we are all philanthropic whether we know it or not. If you are facing an estate tax problem, you need to decide whether you're to give your money to the charity that you choose or the one that Uncle Sam chooses. The default is already in place, right? So even right there, just looking at charitable planning, right? You can think, okay, what's something that I can pull out of this? You have a legacy plan in place, whether you know it or not. The one that you customize for yourself or the one that Uncle Sam chooses. Which one would be more beneficial? Right? Just off the top of your head, right? Let's go to another section. Even ways to give, right? So there are different ways to make a gift. You could literally copy and paste this section right here. Whoop. If it'll let me copy and paste, you could copy and paste this section right here just to educate people on how to make a gift, right? And, let's say you have something on your website currently that you could send them to that talks about estate planning or, life insurance and annuities inside of your estate planning. There's a life insurance section in here, but let's go back up to the charitable planning, right? So let's say that sentence that I thought of before, hopefully I can remember it, is that's what we want to put it as our post, right? So let's flip back over to Canva. First thing we want to have on here is we want to have an image on here that gets people to pause, right? An image will stand out on LinkedIn. Video would be better, but for this specifically, we're going to do an image, right? It's easier to create the images than it is for the videos. The videos, taking selfies and talking is great. I would recommend doing that. But if you're just getting started, let's just focus on this specifically, right? So let's go ahead and search for, if we're talking about charitable planning, legacy, something like that. The first thing that comes to my mind is like a family, right? So I'm just going to put in happy family, okay? So what I want to do is this looks like a pretty good picture right here, right? So let me show you what I just did. Just picked it, drag, and when I go to drop over here, I can either just put it down wherever I want inside of here, or if I drag and drop and kind of move my mouse around a little bit, it'll actually place this image in the background of the picture, which I like because it makes it a little bit easier to work words around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust these guys. It cuts off the family a little bit, not too bad, but I'm going to double click on the image and I'm going to drag them over just a little bit so it covers a little bit more of their bodies. Now that's a pretty good image right there, right? That's something that they're happy. It conveys our prospects and our clients in their after state, right? So we haven't talked about that too much about our clients before state and their after state, right? So the before state is where our customers currently are today. That's currently how they're feeling. They're in the middle of experiencing those pain points or those problems in their life. And what we want to provide them is a transformation to an after state, after they have taken advantage of our products and services, into a state of, less pain, more happiness, right? So that's what we talk about with the after state. So when we're putting together marketing materials, we want to show our customer in their after state with, when we're presenting solutions, right? So once we have this picture here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to text, because we like having text inside of the pictures. People will read that more than they'll read your text above. But I'm going to click, I just usually use the add a heading right here. I click on it. It puts it right in the middle. I'm going to drag it up to the top. All right. We're going to put it down. Let's just go right there. So I'm going to change the font size, which again, I click on this, go up to the top for the font size. And I'm going to use, 21 is pretty small. So let's go to 42. That's a good place to start. We may adjust it, right? So I'm going to double click inside of here. And now going back to what I said before, let's flip back over to Orchestrate Your Legacy. Again, charitable planning, right? So what I pulled out of this is that everybody has a legacy plan in place. Now, how does that relate to insurance? Life insurance can help you create a legacy, right? Annuities can help you so that you don't have to rely on other people. You have other assets in place that you can leave to heirs and beneficiaries. So, pull out the concept that works for you. But in this specific example, we're going to use charitable planning, right? So we're going to say everyone has a legacy in place. Let's remove that. Everyone has a legacy in place, whether they know it or not. The one they customized for themselves. Let's say the one they chose and customized for themselves, or the one that Uncle Sam chose for them. So what I'm going to do is there was a line in here that I liked, right? I like the default is already in place. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new paragraph here and say the default is already in place, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click out of that. I'm going to click over the whole box. I'm going to highlight it. And now I'm going to go to the text color right here. So you'll see that it kind of bleeds into the family a little bit. It's a little bit hard to read. So I'm going to change that text to white. Now that does make it better, but not great. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to widen this a little bit to change where the text is at. It's still not great. So I'm going to try to minimize it. We're going to expand it. So you can play around with it to figure out what works best. Now, you'll see that like the size is okay. It's not great. So we're going to go back up. We're going to say, what does 28 look like? What does 32 look like? That's okay, right? That's not bad. Now, I personally, if I had more time, I'd play around with this a little bit. One thing that I do want to show you is that you're not always going to have a nice solid color background to where it's easy for people to read the text, right? So here's how you get around that in Canva. We're going to go over on the side here to elements. And now we're going to go and just go down to a shape, a square, right? So we click on the square and you'll see that it just pops it up right in the middle. So now what we want to do is we want to adjust this out, adjust this way. And we're going to move this up to about right here and this all the way up. Actually, let's move it to about right here. I think that'll look pretty good. So what this does is it gives us a background for our text. So let's see. Let's make sure this is in the front. So we're going to hit position. Yep, it's already in the front. So let's click on the rectangle that we now created. It was a square, now it's a rectangle. We'll click on that. Let's make that a darker color so it's really easy for people to see our text. So we click on that, and you'll see up in the top left here, this is where the color of the shape is. Click on the color, and now we can set the actual color of the background. So we're going to use just a nice black color, right? So with this, let me move my face to the other side again. With this, when we click on the square, now what we can do is you can see that we can set the transparency up here. So we can make it more transparent to change the color of it. But also, if this, let's say we wanted to put our text down over the family, then you can still see the family in the background. So for this picture specifically, it's not as important because we have enough space at the top to put that text in. But let's use a different photo. So let's use this one right here. So we're going to replace that, right? So we're going to put that to the background, and we're going to put this here. So I really like, I'd rather have bigger text than this because I want people to see it. The picture is nice and it gives people a nice image in the background, shows them in their after state, all that kind of stuff. But what I want to do is I'm going to actually make this bigger, right? So we're going to move our box around a little bit. We're going to take this. Let's use a font that's not so blocky. I like, I don't know. Let's do Montserrat Classic. We'll see what this looks like. Yeah, I like that, right? Not as blocky, right? I don't know if that's a right word or if that's a word. So we're going to move the text up a little bit. There's 36. Here's 40. I like 42 a lot, okay? So we're going to move that. We're going to put that there. We can, if we want to, we can make this a little bit smaller so we have more image. But, man, my face is just getting in the way. I apologize, guys. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with the transparency a little bit. and make it a little bit darker so we can read it really easily. And that's it, right? That's what we have. So we just created a unique piece of content that we can now post on LinkedIn. So what this, because I was explaining it step by step and saying, okay, here's exactly what we need to, or here's what we want to put on here. This is actually how you do it. Here's this step, that step, whatever. It took a little bit longer, but if you were, once you get into this, once you're able to, you know where the buttons are, you know where to click. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to actually get the images and all that put into place and the text on there. The hardest part is going to be to figure out what content you're putting inside of there. But like I said, if you're going through and you're looking at, you're reading through stuff, you're keeping up on your education, you're reading material that is relevant to what you're going to be posting, it's so easy to pull out different pieces of that. You can talk about assets to consider gifting. You talk about estate taxes, portability, gift tax. These are all more, estate planning stuff, but we get into life insurance fundamentals, right? Different types of policies, what it can be used for, buy-sell agreements. So hopefully that helps you understand how you can pull out different pieces of content to create unique, images and unique assets that you can go ahead and post on your LinkedIn. So the final step in doing this is that you're gonna name it up here, LinkedIn post 1, and I'm gonna click out. So what you do is you hit this down arrow right here, the download button, and it's gonna pop up a number of different files that you can choose from. So in Canva, you can do PDFs, JPEGs, videos. I've never created a video in Canva. I guess I've done some like GIFs and stuff, but when you're doing your post, I would just suggest doing a PNG image, and then all you got to do is hit download. And you'll see that it automatically starts downloading for me. Boom, pulls it up at the bottom. I got to log into my LinkedIn account. Let me show you real quick. So I'm going to go to LinkedIn. Let this thing load. So let me actually sign into my account. Give me just a minute. So we'll go to, all right, so we sign in. All right, so all I'm gonna do to actually post this on here, so you've got 3 different options here. You've got your image here, videos, and the article, right? So we're gonna click on the image. We click on the image. Now we're gonna go to our downloads, right? So you'll see that it popped up. We double click on it. All right, so it automatically populates for us. You can put some alternate text in here. You can tag people if you need to, but we hit next. And now we can go through and type in what we want, right? So legacy planning is essential, whatever we want to put here. Go back to the pre-post checklist. What do you want your prospects to think, feel, know, do? And then does your post make prospects pause, think, and engage, right? So the last part on here is that what you can, after you put your text in, think about adding hashtags onto your post. Hashtags will help categorize your post for LinkedIn. So if somebody's really interested, they engage with a lot of posts that are with the hashtag of marketing or life insurance or financial planning, LinkedIn will show your post more to those types of people. So it's a good thing to put on there. Typically, you'll put somewhere between 2 to 5 different hashtags on there. So don't just do a million different hashtags. LinkedIn's pretty tricky in terms of how many it likes. Currently, a small number between 2 and 5 usually works best. So your homework for today is to go into Canva and create one unique post. So you can be clicking around and figure out where things are, but get that post together, and I want you to post it. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on the next training. So talk to you guys soon.